Well, hey, I bet you've probably been wondering where I've been. It's more like I've been wondering where I've been. You know, one would think with what the Golden Knights have been able to accomplish in the last 3 games, I would be more than excited to talk about it. Well, I'd be more than excited to talk about 2 of those 3 games and glossing over whatever game 4 was, which is what we're going to talk about first. But it kind of fell by the wayside for a little bit. Not because I wasn't watching them. Believe me, I was watching them and getting heart palpitations all over the place. I graduated college, had to move out of my dorm. Getting all that figured out kind of took a front seat, and recording videos on the Golden Knights had to take a little bit of a backseat. But all that's figured out. I've got my diploma. I've unpacked, even though it's a little bit chaotic. And now I'm back to our regularly scheduled program of talking about this weird, wacky, and wonderful playoff run. I have no idea if I'm going to do the rest of the videos up here or not. This is the only spot I could get right now. So the best way I can sum up the events of Game 4 of the second round versus the Edmonton Oilers is like, no, no, no. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Yeah. Oh, and if that wasn't bad enough, at the very end of the game, you've got Alex Pietrangelo pulling and getting himself suspended. So, sorry, Robin. Didn't mean to beat you up like that. And so, yeah, Alex Pietrangelo did get suspended for Game 5. Oddly enough, so did Darnell Nurse for trying to beat the tar out of Nick Hague with less than a minute to go in the game. I didn't know that it was a rule where you instigate a fight in the last 5 minutes of a playoff game, or any game for that matter. It's an automatic 1-game suspension. What's weird is I could count on both hands the number of times that there have been scuffles at the end of games instigated by players that didn't result in suspensions. That's because 1, the game was over already, and 2, most of the time the league chooses not to enforce that rule. But because Pietrangelo got suspended for slashing Leon Draisaitl in the wrists, Darnell Nurse gets suspended for trying to punch upward on Nick Hague. Feels like a fair trade to me. So at the end, it was a 4-1 loss. It was ugly. Very ugly. Very, very ugly. Oilers scored 3 in a row in the first and 1 in the second. And yeah, Nick Waugh got 1 in the third, and it was a good goal, but, you know, you have to win and we didn't do that. So, series is tied up, heading back to Vegas. Oh boy. All right, Game 5 is a humongous moment in the series. Throughout the history of the NHL playoffs, in which they played 7 games, the winner of a Game 5 in a series tied 2-2 has gone on to win the series about 79% of the time. So it's really important that the Golden Knights get off to a good start in this game, get it going, find a way to get that first goal for the first time in the series, and you already took a penalty. I swear, what is it with this team and taking penalties in like the first 5 minutes of the game? I don't get it. If I remember it, we had the first power play of the game too, like 2 minutes in, and we did diddly squat with it. So that is even worse. And you may as well just add it to the board already. It's an Edmonton Oilers power play. Do I even need to say it? I'm going to say it. They're over 50% this series. You can't take penalties. I've said it God knows how many times on this channel with this series. I said at the beginning, if the Golden Knights are able to keep them below 30% on the power play, they have a chance. And it is like 50 some odd percent. We're standing here in Game 5. And of course, Connor McDavid scores off of a perfectly deflected pass shot thing that just happened to find him in the low slot, and it's 1-0 already. Now, I will concede that this isn't a new thing for the Golden Knights. They've given up the first goal in 5 consecutive games now. And it's all about answering back. That's how they won Game 1 and Game 3. They answered it back right away, and Jack Eichel, peace be upon him, answered back right away. Less than a minute later, it felt like he was cleaning up the trash in front of Stuart Skinner on a Martinez shot, kind of gave up a juicy rebound / block thing. Puck got into the slot, and he may have bumped Skinner out of the way. He may not have. What's important is he tied up the game at 1 apiece. The Oilers did challenge it. They failed the challenge, so the Golden Knights go back to the power play. Unfortunately, they did jack with that power play either. And not the good kind of jack as in Jack Eichel. They did jack as in Jack. And then there would be another penalty just a few minutes later taken by the Golden Knights. I don't remember who took it or what it was because that game was 5 days ago. But what I know is that it's another power play. The Oilers are going to score, and they do, because of course they do, because of the Oilers. I believe it was a original good save by Adin Hill from like a point-ish shot higher in the zone. Went off of his legs/glove area, kicked up and hit Zach Hyman right in the hand and in. So if you're scoring at home, or even if you're alone on this one, the Oilers have 2 power play goals in Game 5. Both of which haven't beaten Adin Hill clean, and both of which were on fluke bounces. As if all of the sports media didn't want the Oilers to win, we don't need the hockey gods intervening either. So it's relatively imperative that the Golden Knights get off to a good start in the second period, and that is not what happened. It was kind of just tooth and nail, kind of a grudge match. And ultimately, it was a little bit of a mess, which is to be expected. While the second period is the Golden Knights' best period this postseason, it was historically their worst period for the entirety of the regular season. So I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop in water to find level. And through the first 8-9 minutes of this second period, it felt like this was going to be the time where water found level. Mercifully, it's not the case, as the Oilers finally did what the Golden Knights have been doing all series, which is taking stupid penalties. First, it was, I believe it was a high stick or an interference or something. There were 2 penalties taken in pretty quick succession, which kind of tips my hand as to what happened. And ultimately, before you even think about it, the Golden Knights are on an extended 5-on-3. Now, we have a bad power play. Don't get me wrong. I don't think any Golden Knights fan or any member of the NHL media will disagree with that statement. Our power play is lackluster on a good day. Going into the second round, we had like the 10th best power play out of the 8 teams remaining. Don't do that math for you. It'll hurt your head even more. That means there are teams that are out that had a better power play than we did. But that's not the point here. The fact of the matter is, when you're down 2-1 to the Edmonton Oilers at home and you have a 5-on-3, you have to take advantage of it, and take advantage of it the Golden Knights were able to. 5-on-3 gives a lot of space on the ice. The Golden Knights have good passing play. Worked the puck around the high part of the zone. I believe it was like Smith to Theodore to Marchessault. Marchessault down to Stone, who, or it was either Marchessault or Eichel, passed it down to Stone on the goal line. This is where Mark Stone has been kind of missing, especially since he got injured. It's been a couple of years since he's made this play, but seeing him make this play brought me back to, the bubble or the 2019 playoffs when he was just a cheat code against the San Jose Sharks. He takes the puck, wraps around out front, and banks it in off the far post in a, as Dan Duva on the radio call said, slam dunk goal. That's just what it was. It was a slam dunk goal. And so now it's 2-2. And it was scored quickly enough on the 5-on-3 where the Golden Knights still get an extended power play. And basically right off the faceoff, they get the puck into the zone again, high on a break-in. High point shot gets deflected, I believe, off of Evander Kane. And it just finds Riley Smith in the low slot. He has been snake bit, over the moon this postseason. He has done nothing. He's got no goals and barely any points through as many games. And he's able to tip this one past Stuart Skinner. And ultimately, that puts the Golden Knights up 3-2. 2 power play goals in the span of about 45 seconds. And then about a minute later, the puck is kind of fought for in the low zone. Eichel catches the puck just to the left of Stuart Skinner's net, wraps it around to Nick Hague, who fires it wide because he's Nick Hague. But then Jack Eichel does it again. Wraps the puck around, wins a corner battle by the left to Stuart Skinner, wraps it around to Nick Hague again, who this time one-times it off the back of the net. So he beat Skinner clean, which is saying something because he's Stuart Skinner and it's Nick Hague, who is like trying to hone in the sights on a pellet shotgun half the time. But when he hits, boy, does he hit hard. And this one hit really hard as, he puts the Golden Knights up 4-2. And with time winding down in the second period, I have the naive thought of saying, you know what? I'm feeling pretty good. What could possibly go wrong? There is 20 seconds left to go in this period, and they can't get out of their defensive zone. What could possibly go wrong? Keegan, no. Keegan, no, Keegan. So Keegan Colasar decided to take Matthias Ekholm's head off and drew a 5-minute major penalty with 20 seconds to go in the second period. How many times have I reiterated Edmonton's power play percentage to this point? Yeah. So, third period, 4 minutes and 40 seconds of Edmonton power play that can't be stopped no matter how many goals they score. I go into that second intermission thinking that we're going to lose the game 6-4. But by the grace of the Bruce Cassidy defense system, miracles can and will happen. And it feels like that's what happened here. As, God, how many shot blocks were there on that penalty kill? Like 10,000 of them? Like Martinez putting his body on the line, McNabb putting his body on the line, Wyckoff putting his body on the line, Pietrangelo put his body on the line a little bit, Riley Smith, everybody bought into the system. And somehow, with 5 minutes of uninterrupted power play, the Oilers were only able to score once. And it was on McDavid. So you kind of have to phone that one in. He got it off of a rush chance. But it's 4-3 with the entire third period to go, basically. And from like the 12-minute mark onwards, it felt like the Golden Knights were killing a 12-minute long power play. They just killed 5 with one less guy. It just felt like they were playing exceptional defense. And with time continuing to wind down, that's what they were doing. They were playing incredibly defensive, chipping the puck out but not taking icings. And the Fortress is jumping because it's 4-3. And I'm watching the game with my family. And when we get to the last minute, and there are 3 consecutive icings with a minute and then about 10 seconds and then about 5 seconds, I said before each of them, this is the biggest face-off of the series. And lo and behold, original misfit William Karlsson winning not 1, not 2, but all 3 of those face-offs to preserve the 4-3 win and giving the Golden Knights a 3-2 series lead. All right, buddy, we're going to Edmonton. We're closing it out. Site, Rogers Arena, Edmonton, Alberta. Place, Game 6, Western Conference second round between the Edmonton Oilers and the Vegas Golden Knights. All of Canada is watching this game as, their other hope for a Stanley Cup just got their butts handed to them in overtime by former Golden Knights Nick Cousins and the Florida Panthers. So, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are the last line of defense preventing the United States from winning the Stanley Cup for the 29th year in a row. And 20 seconds into the game, it looked like it was going to be a fool's errand, as for the first time in this entire series, and for the first time since I can remember, Golden Knights scored first. And oddly enough, Riley Smith was the one who scored first. So he went from having nothing to having 2 goals in 3 periods. So, good start. All was a misplay, kind of by Stuart Skinner behind the net. Early on in the game, he waited too long to move the puck, allowed the Golden Knights forecheckers to get set up, and ultimately, a defenseman wound up making not 1, but 2 horseshoes around the far circle, and ultimately left a seam pass open for Smith, who one time snaps it past Skinner from between the hash marks, basically, making 1-0 just 20 seconds into the game. So everything's going good, and then we remember that Oilers have McDavid, and 30 seconds after the Golden Knights score, McDavid kind of takes it coast to coast, gets a little bit of a pass when he enters the offensive zone, and ultimately shoots it through Braden McNabb's legs, past the blocker of Aiden Hill, and it's 1-1 before the first minute of the game has elapsed. So 59 minutes to go. It's like the game never changed. It's 1-1 or 0-0. It's tied, however you want to look at it. And then 2 minutes later, Warren Foegele takes a low pass on a misread from Braden McNabb, and ultimately is able to one-time it from just below the dot, past Hill, I believe on the glove side, making it 2-1 Oilers. And shockingly, that's where the first period would end. I don't know. I guess they wanted to get it out of the way early, get to that 2-1 deficit. But the Golden Knights were playing okay. They weren't playing incredibly, but they weren't playing incredibly bad either, which is kind of an interesting state of being to have. The team is playing good enough to be in the game, but not good enough to be in the lead. And so that's kind of where the game sits. And Aiden Hill, despite getting off to a slow start, looked better throughout the second period. I'm sure he will continue to look a lot better as the game would go on. That's what we call in the industry foreshadowing. Ultimately, the second period would be, as it has been all series, the period that defines the game. And it's not so much, it wasn't really the second period for the Golden Knights, which is a good show, don't get me wrong, and please forgive the pun. But the second period was really the Marcia show. Yeah, that hurt to say. Just forget I said that. The fact of the matter is, the Golden Knights needed something, and through about 10 minutes through the period, they really didn't have anything going, similar to exactly what happened in Game 5. However, there would be no 5-on-3 power play to bail them out this time. it would be a little bit different. It would be a heady play. It would be a skill play. Jack Eichel will get the puck low in the zone, work it up the boards. He would kind of pull two defenders with him. Whether the puck was knocked off his stick or he passed it, he found Shea Theodore at the blue line. Theodore throws it on net, and I think Ivan Barbashev was trying to tip this in the goal, but he was kind of tied up. So what he wound up doing was tipping it out to his left to a completely vacant point, and Marchessault was Johnny on the spot, firing it past Stuart Skinner, who kind of flailed over like a dying fish, missing the puck, and it's 2-2. And then a few minutes later, Alec Martinez would take a absolute howitzer of a slap shot from just above the circle, just above the right circle, and would hit Stuart Skinner high. Not high enough to roll off him and go in, but high enough to bounce somewhere into the 300 level of Rogers Arena. Puck would come down, and only Jonathan Marchessault seemed to know where it was, as he had both his feet firmly planted in the blue paint. Now, if this was 2001, this goal wouldn't have counted. I'm looking at you, Dallas Stars. But that's a story for another day. The fact of the matter is Jonathan Marchessault tips it behind Skinner. I mean, the puck was already behind him, but he made sure it was going behind him. And the Golden Knights lead 3-2. And then a weird string of events happen. It's late in the second period now. Jonathan Marchessault sitting on 2 goals in the period. And then the Golden Knights run into some penalty trouble. First, we get a power play, which is awesome. We haven't gotten many power plays, and we figured, okay, we can run away with this one. And then about 15 seconds in the power play, Eichel takes a penalty, which isn't great. Or not 15, more like 40 seconds into the power play, Eichel takes a penalty, which isn't great. So it's 4-on-4 for a little bit, and the Oilers got to be feeling good. You know, they're benefiting at 4-on-4 because they've got the faster players, and then they got the power play. They're only down 1, and they think that they can take advantage of this and tie up the game going into the third period. Unfortunately, Ekholm forgot what Keegan Colasar did to him in Game 4, I believe. No, Game 5. That's when he had the 5. Silly me. It's almost like I should remember that because it was traumatizing. But anyway, it's like he forgot what was happening, and he decides to run over Zach Whitecloud in the corner when he is, would you say he was a good 3-4 feet away from the boards? So he takes a penalty, and that puts the Golden Knights back on the power play. Albeit it's 4-on-3, it's a little bit different. But ultimately, they're able to maintain the zone. It definitely felt like an overtime push, you know, because it's the only time you ever see 4-on-3. And the Golden Knights were pretty good. Weren't able to land anything on the power play, but as time was expiring on the first power play, it was pretty obvious that the Golden Knights were setting something up. And so Jonathan Marchessault got the puck behind the circle. Stone got inside positioning in front of Skinner. Not sure how much there was a screen, but it was enough of one. Marchessault wires it home past Skinner for the first natural hat trick in Golden Knights history and the second playoff hat trick in Golden Knights history. Oddly enough, using as a screen the only other player who has scored a playoff hat trick in Golden Knight history in the form of Mark Stone. So it's 4-2. And the Oilers were shell-shocked. They had the chance to go up with the penalties and the power plays that they were going to get if Ekholm had just not been stupid. And so what was 3-3 in the minds of the Edmonton Oilers and the Oilers faithful is now 4-2. And it really looked like it in the third period. You know, the Golden Knights did get massively outplayed. At the end of the game, it wound up being shots like 44-20 in favor of the Oilers. The Oilers leading in every meaningful category. But the work of Adin Hill in the third period, he made some incredible saves down the stretch, including one with about 12 minutes to go when the Golden Knights really started to lock it down on defense. I think it was Ekholm got lost in the slot, and he just kind of threw his right arm out there, got a kind of a slot pass with his shoulder-arm combo. And ultimately, that wound up being one of the Oilers' best chances. Sure, there were a couple of rush plays from McDavid off the far boards or coming out of the corner, but Adin Hill was there. He was taking him to task. And the other thing is the Oilers put in Jack Campbell at the start of the third period because apparently Stuart Skinner was the wrong choice. Pretty sure I'd been saying that since Game 5. And if I had recorded this beforehand, before the start of Game 6, I would have said on the record saying, I think they should go with Jack Campbell in Game 6 instead of Stuart Skinner, but I'm not the GM of the Edmonton Oilers. I'm a random Knights fan on YouTube. Fact of the matter is, they couldn't solve the Rubik's Cube that was Adin Hill, and with less than a minute to go, William Karlsson takes a stretch pass coming out of the defensive zone, beats his defender, and slides it in very carefully into the empty net, giving the Golden Knights a 5-2 lead. And ultimately, that's where it would end. Handshakes, no confetti cannons because it's on the road, unfortunately. But the Golden Knights are going to their third Western Conference final in, goodness knows, third Western Conference final and fourth Final Four in their 6 years of existence. I know the Montreal one was weird because of the weird divisions, but they're in the Final Four for the fourth time. Now, the only notable thing that happened in the handshake line was Alex Pietrangelo and Leon Draisaitl didn't really exchange pleasantries very quickly, and by that I mean it looked like they wanted to axe murder each other in the handshake line, but it doesn't matter. The series is over. The Golden Knights are moving on. The Oilers are going home. The United States has won the Stanley Cup for the 29th year in a row. And knowing the result of the Dallas Stars game, the Vegas Golden Knights are the northernmost team, geographically, in the Final Four for this postseason. So that's a weird factoid of hockey history, which I never thought I would ever see. So, yeah. Game 1 against the Dallas Stars in the Western Conference Final, a rematch of the 2020 Bubble Western Conference Final, starts Friday. Today's Wednesday. So let the fear and anxiety ramp up begin. Jake Ottinger is better than Stuart Skinner. Miro Heiskanen is better than most of the defensemen on the Edmonton Oilers. It's going to be one heck of a series. But let's just sit here and revel in the fact that despite all the odds, despite every pundit saying we never had a chance, picking, Oilers in 3, we sent them home. We sent them packing, and we played 4 games, and we were the better team in those 4, and they won 2 games, and they were better in those 2. The team that scored 3 consecutive goals in this series, in every single game, won every single game. Golden Knights scored 3 in a row 4 times. The Oilers scored 3 in a row twice. And that's your difference. Onwards and upwards. Western Conference Final coming soon.